Hi, fantasy readers. This is Karyne Norton, your fellow book binger, and you are listening to the Finding Fantasy Reads podcast, where you can test out a new fantasy story every single week to find your next favorite author. Today's story has all the cozy Halloween feels just in time for the holiday. It's written by Hannah Carter, who's just a girl who wakes up every day hoping to find out she's secretly a mermaid. She's the author of the Atlantis trilogy, which recently concluded with Tempest of Reckoning. Her short stories and award-winning flash fiction pieces have been published in various anthologies, one of which won a Realm Award in 2022. In addition to fiction, she's had over a dozen devotions published, and in her spare time, she's either cuddling her cats, reading with a cup of tea, or listening to an absurd amount of Taylor Swift. This might all sound familiar because we've featured some of Hannah's flash fiction stories before. I remember when I read this one right after Halloween last year, I immediately marked it down as one to request for this year because I knew it would be so much fun to feature. I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. Make sure to stick around to the end or check out today's show notes to see where you can find more from Hannah. For now, please enjoy Of Pumpkins and Golden Apples by Hannah Carter.
Hattie Underwood, I thought I told you not to use the Cinderella curse.
Percy Holmes bellowed while he dove out of the way of another sentient pumpkin that I'd accidentally created. Did you? I watched as yet another pumpkin popped out of the ground, or rather crawled. The Cinderella curse not only made them massive, apparently they were cognizant enough to band together to form massive pumpkin monsters. Pumpkins, as I'd taken to calling them in my head. I must not have heard you! I screeched the last word and jumped to avoid the massive arm of a pumpkin while it stomped past me.
I said it at least 50 times,
Percy called. Well, there's your problem. You should have told me 51 times. I snatched up my wand from where I'd dropped it in the mud when the first pumpkin had come for me. I was just trying to help with the harvest.
Next time, consider not helping to be the best sort of help.
Percy ran over to me and shoved me behind him.
No more midnight walks, but ugh!
One of the pumpkins sideswiped Percy, and the poor head prefect tumbled right into one of the gourds that hadn't come to life yet. And, by the looks of the massacre, it wouldn't do so any time soon. I smothered a laugh behind my scarf and raced over to him. Excellent try, Perce. He glowered at me as he raised his gloopy seed-covered hands.
Why do I always get in trouble for your little schemes?
I held up my hand and pulled off my mittens so he could see our matching scars. A little reminder of our excursion to the underworld, where we'd had to fuse souls to escape. It's because you're my best friend. You get the bad times and the good times.
I just wish there weren't so many bad times with you,
Percy grumbled. No, you don't. I keep life interesting, and you know it. I grinned over my shoulder before I pointed my wand at the pumpkins. No more midnight walks. Pumpkins cannot talk. My magic wrapped around the pumpkins. They staggered and slowed until heads started to roll, literally. The top pumpkins, the heads of the pumpkins, collapsed to the ground first and splattered. One by one, the rest of the body parts followed suit. Percy sighed as he trudged over to me.
How about next time? When you offer to help with the school's harvest festival, you just pick the pumpkins like a normal person.
What's the fun of being normal? I put my hands on my hips. We have magic, for crying out loud.
But that doesn't mean you have to always depend on it. Especially you.
Percy flicked a pumpkin seed off his elbow as he put on his future headmaster of Morgana Hall voice.
Your continual over-reliance on magic to solve even the most mundane problems gets you into more trouble than not.
I set about fixing his red scarf while he lectured. At least it gave me something productive to do since I didn't particularly want to listen. Are you finished yet?
Have you listened at all?
The wind rattled what little of the leaves remained on the trees. The bare bones of the branches smacked against each other, and my hair whipped about me until I tucked it into my scarf. I stepped a bit closer to Percy to use his frame, no matter how lanky and ineffective, as a buffer against the chill. Yes, I get your point. Whether or not I agree is a completely different subject, but I get your point. I grinned at him and bent down to hoist a hefty pumpkin. But are you sure I can't use a weight lightning spell? Percy glared at me. No, Hattie Underwood, you may not. Ugh, fine, I moaned. But you owe me a massage if I throw out my back tonight. Candles burned brightly from the windows of Morgana Hall. Autumn had rushed over the castle and left it even more majestic in the long nights. The full moon blazed in the sky by the time Percy and I finished carting all the pumpkins from the field to their final destination, the grand dining room, where they'd be turned into decorations for the Halloween feast and festival. The annual celebration changed locations each year, and this was Morgana Hall's first time hosting in over 100 years. Everyone seemed to be in a tizzy about the whole thing. Me? I just couldn't wait to see the food menu. I trust you're going to stay out of trouble tomorrow? Sweat beaded on Percy's brow as he carefully picked up the last of our wares from the wheelbarrow. Heaven knows we don't need you to open up some portal to the underworld and make Halloween more stressful than it already is. That was one time. I hopped up on one of the wooden tables and pumped my legs back and forth. Percy held up his hand. And it better only be one time moving forward. I only have one soul to split with you, Hattie Underwood. I grinned and pulled my long dark brown hair out from underneath my red scarf. We still don't fully know the repercussions of that. What if we start hearing each other's thoughts? Or what if you unleashed the end of the world? All we know is that we're both tethered to the underworld somehow, and if one of us dies, we could end up enshrined in one of the towers like King Arthur. Percy's hazel eyes narrowed. I shuddered at the thought of the dead monarch, caught in some stasis between life and death. And get your bum off the table. All sorts of important wizards and witches are going to be eating off that, and I'd prefer it not be contaminated by you. I rolled my eyes and hopped off. Or nothing bad could happen from it at all. Stop being such a pessimist. You know, Hattie Underwood! I yelped and whirled around as the great mahogany doors of the dining room flew open. Headmistress Demetria, a.k.a. Percy's mother, a.k.a. the woman who hated me with a fiery passion, stormed into the room, clad all in black, from her very pointy hat to her equally pointy high-heeled shoes. Her pince-nez glasses dangled from the end of a golden chain and bounced against her chest. What? I began. This time, young lady, your shenanigans have gone too far. I held up my hands, still covered in a bit of pumpkin goop. Look, Perce and I just carried in over 100 pumpkins, so 1 or 2, or 30 or 40, Percy muttered. I ignored him. Accidentally became sentient and almost went on a rampage. The end of the story is that we rounded them up, undid the Cinderella curse with limited damage, and the majority of the harvest is still saved. I finished my excuse and stepped away. Headmistress Demetria's face had turned scarlet, and there was a very good chance she might explode. You think I'm worried about a little pumpkin incident? Hattie Underwood, you've put all our civilization in danger. I don't care that you used the Cinderella curse on a few pumpkins. You don't? I glanced over my shoulder at Percy, who looked equally confused, but perhaps not for the same reason. Mother, the Cinderella curse is still very dangerous. If we hadn't reverted it by the stroke of midnight, yeah, definitely not for the same reasons. Are you trying to get me expelled? I snapped. I'm trying to get you to realize the consequences of your actions. Enough! Headmistress Demetria hollered. Above us, the candlelit chandeliers swayed. Both of you! I've had it with your nonsense about the pumpkins. Hattie Underwood, if you will not return the golden apple, I'll... She sputtered a few times, as if her brain couldn't comprehend the audacity of my apparent fruit-snatching. I blinked. So, you're not upset about the pumpkins, but you're upset about an apple? Headmistress Demetria put her hands on her hips. Not any apple. The golden apple of discord. And not only that, but right when Eris's prison tenure in Tartarus is over. Who knows what might happen if she decides to take her revenge and get the golden apple? Her voice trailed off in a moan. I didn't take a stupid apple. golden or other. I crossed my arms over my chest. You don't understand, Hattie. Percy rested a hand on my shoulder. His face seemed pinched. His eyebrows were knitted together. The golden apple of discord is the sole reason we have the feast on Halloween. Every year, hundreds of witches and wizards get together to cast protection charms on it so that Eris can't use it. And this year was the most important because she got out of Tartarus. If they don't keep the golden apple under control, then chaos. I'm intrigued. I cleared my throat when Headmistress Demetria huffed so loudly that her nostrils flared. I mean, that's just a joke. Do you not pay attention to your lessons at all? What is the use of being in a boarding school if you continually goof off instead of listening? Headmistress Demetria returned her pince-nez to their spot on her nose, perhaps to magnify the intensity of her withering stare. Eris, well, imagine her like a fey version of you, chaos personified, Percy said. I bit back the urge to say that I liked the sound of this girl already. Percy probably wouldn't take too kindly to the joke, or to being interrupted when he'd entered his ultimate lecture form. To get back at the witches and wizards of Kingland when they invaded Phelan centuries ago, she created the Golden Apple, which she crafted on Halloween when the lines between the worlds are weakest. It was supposed to curse all of Kingland, but we've been able to contain the magic thus far by powerful wards, which must be renewed every Halloween so its power stays under control. Percy finished, and turned to me. Do you want me to clap? Say congratulations on memorizing all that? I swiveled between the two of them. Anyways, I didn't take the golden apple. No other person would have a motive. Every single idea you have is meant to cause more chaos. Headmistress Demetria quivered. And since I have been personally entrusted to watch over the golden apple this year, I find it highly suspicious that it would disappear under my watch and no one else's. I can't help it that you're bad at keeping watch over magical chaotic apples. I turned to go, but Headmistress Demetria latched her talon-like hands onto my shoulders and spun me around. Hattie Underwood! Headmistress Demetria's voice trembled, and her eyes flashed, the rage in them barely concealed. If you do not stop these shenanigans and return the golden apple, I will have no choice but to expel you. Expel? I felt the blood leave my face, and I might have swayed just a bit. But return the golden apple, Hattie. I am not joking with you. Headmistress Demetria's voice turned shrill. Perce, tell her I didn't do it. I shoved her hands away and backed toward my best friend. She really didn't, Percy repeated quietly. I promise. She's been with me all day. Headmistress Demetria scoffed. I can't believe it. Sticking up for this miscreant? She's the whole reason that you got sent to the underworld. She's the reason we had to replace half the pool last year. And she's the reason I can't keep a potions teacher for longer than a year. Percy fell silent. I clutched the table for balance. The blood in my body must have reversed course, because my face suddenly felt far too flushed. Percy, tell her that's not true. That part kind of is true, Percy muttered. You do tend to blow up a lot of potions. And the pool incident? Well, we've been barred from speaking about it. I growled under my breath. Hot tears stung my eyes. Headmistress Demetria, you are the reason half my son's soul is now fused with yours, or what not, in a forbidden bond. You are the reason he has to spend half the year in the underworld. And you are the most abysmal student this school has ever seen. Headmistress Demetria jammed her sharp finger right into one of the buttons on my tan coat. I staggered backward, and Percy came up to steady me. Regardless of whether or not you tell me the truth here, Hattie Underwood, I officially expel you from school until you return the golden apple of discord. With that, Headmistress Demetria pivoted on her heel and charged out of the room. With a wave of her hands, the heavy doors slammed behind her, leaving an air of finality in their wake. I slumped over one of the larger pumpkins and stared at the spots along its orange grooves. Hattie? Percy nudged me with some part of his body, probably a foot. Are you okay? Expelled, I croaked. An Underwood has never been expelled from Morgana Hall before. Oh, Zelda will kill me. With a crazy bloodline like yours, let's be honest, an expulsion was bound to happen sometime. Percy settled down on the floor beside me. And neither one of us has to tell your sister if we find the golden apple of discord and return it. Oh, now you're on my side? I glared at him through the curtains of my hair. Great job sticking up for me now instead of when I needed it back then. I told her you didn't do it. Percy drew his knees up to his chest and wrapped his arms around them. But you didn't vouch for my character, or stop her from saying all those horrible things about me, or anything. I groaned. I've never even heard of this golden apple of discord or heiress before. How can I find something when I don't know what it is? You really don't listen in school, do you? Percy muttered. But how can I deny it? You did do those things, and your reputation is a little less than stellar on most subjects. Percy reached over, hesitating a little bit because perhaps he thought I might bite his arm off, and rubbed my back. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Gee, thanks. Broomsticks and baubles, Hattie. What do you want me to say? You're not a good student, and you don't behave yourself, ever. He gave me a final pat and stood up. But if you're ready to stop moping and get to work, I may have a solution. What? I didn't bother to lift my head. Eris and her golden apple are known to cause chaos and discord, right? Wait, don't answer that. It's rhetorical, and I doubt you even remember my explanation. Percy paced back and forth. I caught a glimpse of his loafers every time he passed by me. So it stands to reason that whoever took the golden apple, wherever they go, we're going to be looking at utter mayhem. And that's how we'll find them. Especially if it's Eris herself. So we just go chaos hunting, I said drolly. See what mischief we can unearth? Exactly. He bent down until we were almost on eye level. And there's no one on Earth more suited to sniffing out mischief than you, Hattie Underwood. As it turns out, I didn't have to sniff too far for my mischief. We'd barely made it out of the dining room before my older sister Zelda grabbed my arm. She jerked me into a hallway. Have you been messing with Bruno again? Hello to you too, Z, I muttered. The last I saw Bruno, he was up in his tower like a good little boy. Why? Got some more wanton accusations to throw at me? The Bruno in question happened to be a giant shadow beast that operated as a portal to the underworld. A few months ago, he'd accidentally eaten Percy. Since then, Bruno's diet had consisted of far fewer people. Zelda screwed up her face. Because I tried to do some Halloween shopping, but wouldn't you know it, the shops are closed down because of monsters. Monsters? Yes, hundreds of them. Zelda gave me a good shake. Wolvers and werewolves and magic gone awry. Oh my, Percy cut in. Sounds like Eris might be out for some revenge. Zelda's eyes widened. Eris? As in the Fae who created the golden apple? But I'm confused. What does she have to do with anything? Does everyone know who this Eris is besides me? I grumbled. Well, yes. Zelda jiggled me again until my head bobbled. Because Percy and I are both prefects, and therefore pay attention in school instead of napping. But what's going on? I ask again. The golden apple is gone, Percy said. Mum thinks Hattie took it, but I know she didn't. She was with me, causing chaos with the Cinderella curse. Hattie! Zelda shrieked. Ugh! Her face turned red, and she shook me so hard I thought my brains might actually fall out on the floor. I don't even know where to start, with the golden apple or the fact you used the Cinderella curse. Lecture her for both? Percy suggested. I shoved her off. We don't have time, you two. Zelda leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and pinched the bridge of her nose. Oh, Hattie, this is bad. This is very bad. How did someone even get the golden apple? Someone very powerful must have nabbed it, Percy offered, which makes me think that, with all this evidence, we're dealing with Eris herself,
or some minion that stole it for her. Both of them faced me at this suggestion. I poked them both. It's not me. I'm not helping Eris. I don't even know who she is. Fine, that's in the past anyway. Percy's olive-colored face had blanched. Our more pressing issue is that it sounds like she's recreating the War of Kingland versus Phelan. Sounds like she started with the massacre that happened when the spellcasters unleashed wolvers and werewolves on the Fae. She's getting revenge on Halloween. Zelda shuddered. Halloween's Revenge. That sounds like a book I'd almost want to read. I squeaked as Zelda punched my arm. Okay, sorry. At least we know where Eris is now, though. Come on. Percy snatched my hand. We've got to hurry. What for? I asked as he dragged me out the door. Don't you remember? It's a full moon tonight. The werewolves are in a primal transformation. Oh, dear. That was a little bit more chaos than I had reckoned for. Zelda, Percy, and I stood on one of the cobblestone streets that led into town and stared at the disaster. Wolfish creatures, the differences between wolvers and werewolves were minuscule at best, crashed through town. Doors exploded, glass shattered, people screamed. Fires raged on in some spots, probably from when spellcasters had tried to defend themselves. One of the creatures whirled on us. Saliva dripped from its maw as it bared its teeth. Its eyes glowed yellow, and its silver-white fur gleamed in the moonlight. I gulped and took a step back. Zelda grabbed my hand before I could go any farther. Pretend like it's a dog, Hattie. Like that helped. She knew my deep fear of canines. It's a big dog, Z. Percy whipped out his wand and pointed it at the creature. And aren't you the one always telling me that we've got magic? Just remember, don't get bitten. Zelda pulled out her wand, too, so I followed suit. The wolver, or werewolf, charged right at me. A howl shook the air as more joined the fray. Zelda and Percy shot fire spells at the attacking one. I smelled singed fur, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Look how many other wizards and witches had tried that. The monster leapt at me. It tackled me to the ground. Drool dropped onto my face, and some innate instinct took over my mind. I screamed and shoved my wand into its mouth before it could bite down, but the creature was strong. I heard my wand start to splinter, but I couldn't do anything to stop it. The wolf and I were locked in a battle of wills. I rolled and kicked, desperate to dislodge the creature from on top of me, but it weighed a ton. Only one thing to do. I shoved my hand against its throat, losing my grip on the wand. My flimsy wooden protection fell, and the wolf dove for my neck, maw open. Fire! Heat poured from my palm onto the creature. It yelped, and I let go of my wand completely to grab another bit of fur. Fire! Pain raced through my arms, but the pyre that burst to life on the wolf was worth it. The creature whimpered and staggered off me as it clawed desperately at its blazing neck. I coughed and rolled away. Burns crisscrossed my palms, a testament to the fact that I'd used a mildly dangerous spell without the conduit of my wand. I hissed and shook out my hands. Where was my wand? I'd lost it somewhere in the tussle. Another wolver ran at me, fangs bared. I held up my burned hands in defense. Oh, this would hurt. Shrink! Percy's spell reached the creature before I could finish mine. Magic swirled around the animal and shrank it until it could fit into a teacup. I scooted out of the way as it collided with the pavement. I punted its tiny body away before it could regrow. Taking a page out of my book, huh, Perce? I grinned, remembering his fascination with how I'd shrunk Cerberus back in the underworld. See, I actually do listen and learn from you. Percy wiped a bit of dirt off his cheek. Can you see Eris anywhere in this mess? I don't know. What does she look like? Like a fae. Pointy ears, tall, ethereal. Percy coughed as the smoke from the fires around us billowed higher. We're never going to be able to take out all of these monsters. Our only hope is to get to Eris and somehow stop her from using the golden apple to cause any more disasters. Yeah. Hey, where's Zelda? My heart hammered as I swiveled about. There were so many spellcasters out in droves, and some had even taken to putting out the fires. But I couldn't spy my sister's blonde head anywhere. Zelda? Don't yell. You don't want to attract any more attention. Percy edged closer to me, wand in hand. I'd rather attract the attention of monsters than leave my sister to die. I shoved him away and ran into the crowded street. Zelda? Zelda! A werewolf darted out of a side alley and into my path. It swiped at my forearm. Sharp claws tore through my coat and stung my skin. I couldn't use another fire spell until I found my wand, lest I hurt myself even more, so I pounded my fist into its side. It twisted around and snapped its teeth in my direction. I jerked back before it could pass its shape-shifting curse on to me. So many howls filled the air as the full moon inched further toward its zenith. What had Percy said earlier? Something about how my over-reliance on magic would one day get me into trouble? Why did he always have to be so smart? The werewolf growled and backed me into a dark corner. I backpedaled, tripped on a broken piece of cobblestone, and slammed into a brick wall. My hands stung, and in the pale moonlight, I could already see the skin blister and peel. Wait. Wait. Of course. Percy Holmes, you're brilliant, I muttered under my breath. So am I, though. I dropped right as the creature lunged at me. It crashed into the wall, and I picked up the large chunk of cobblestone that I'd tripped over. I smashed the creature's muzzle with my makeshift weapon. It whimpered and snarled, but I thrashed it several more times in a row so it couldn't get a bite in. Then I backed away, hurled the rock at it, and darted to the main street. If I couldn't get my wand, I'd need to think a little outside the box. And that meant relying on what I'd learned in, of all places, school. Silver, I need a jewelry shop. Come on, a place like this has to have one. I glanced at each broken store as I passed by them. The fray raged on all around me. Heat from the fires pressed against me. Screams, spells, and howls nearly drowned out my thoughts. I'd lost Percy and Zelda in the madness, but I'd find them again, and they'd praise my brilliance as I saved their lives. I saw our salvation in a little line of shops. A wooden sign dangled from a single chain, but I could read the paint. Harbor Oak Jewelers. The door still stood, but the handle turned easily. I assumed they'd still been open for business earlier. Halloween was a major retail holiday, and I could imagine eager witches and wizards pouring through this very door with the expectation of buying an engagement ring or some pretty bauble. What I planned on doing was slightly less legal on a normal day, but much more necessary during an emergency. That is, I'd have to nick some supplies. Silver. I just need a few big silver items. I spun a few of the displays around, but most of them boasted that they were fake, and therefore cheap. I growled under my breath and stared at the wares inside the glass cases. What would be the best Wolver defense? I found it in a gaudy display. Silver and diamond encrusted letter openers. I clicked my tongue. That's nothing but a status symbol. You can use your fingers to open a letter, people. I checked the tag, especially at that price. All I needed was something heavy enough to break into the display. And since they were by their own admittance, cheap and fake, I picked up the spinning display of fake silver jewelry and swung it full force into the glass case. My hands shrieked in protest, and my shoulders ached as I drew back for my second and third swings. On the fourth, the glass shattered and crashed to the floor like a flood. The shards crunched underneath my shoes while I grabbed 3 letter openers, all I could hold. Time to stab some werewolves. The smoke had thickened while I'd been in the jewelry shop. I raised my scarf over my nose and wove my way through the crowd. One unfortunate wolver backed into me as he fought an elderly witch. I sliced at his rump and sent him running. Zelda! Percy! I reached the spot where we'd started, but neither of them had returned. If they'd run off in search of Eris, maybe they'd gone into the heart of the city. I backtracked again. Debris scattered across the roads. People slumped against walls or crates. I trod over broken fragments of everything from flower pots to wooden boxes as I zigzagged through the winding streets. If the Golden Apple could do this to the quaint little town of Harbor Oak, while still somewhat held in check by the waning power of last year's runes, I shuddered to think what would happen come Halloween. Zelda! Percy! I started down one corner, but found 2 more wolvers tearing apart a chunk of raw chicken. When they heard me, their ears pricked up, and they turned their heads. I guess they wanted some fresher food on the buffet. I whipped out 2 of the letter openers and left the third one tucked into the band of my skirt. The wolver on the left made the first leap. I sliced at it with one letter opener. The creature howled and backed away, but its friend continued to circle. They'd surrounded me. I whirled on the one at my back. I had to prioritize escape. I lunged at its side, aiming to jab my weapon there. The beast hopped sideways. I fell on the ground. The original attacker rushed at me again, but when it leaped, I rolled out of the way and tackled it. I held the silver on either side of its neck and listened to the sizzle of its fur. It howled while it ran in circles. Its companion watched in what could only be described as wolfish confusion. I pressed the daggers closer to its skin. It whined and raced down a path as I clung to it. The creature attempted to shake me off and nipped at the air, but when its teeth got a little too close for comfort, I struck it with the blade to keep it from spreading its lycanthropy to me. The one benefit of riding on this crazy beast? At least others didn't dare attack me. They seemed oblivious to me on top of their friend. So even though I had to fight to stay upright, the benefits far outweighed the dangers. The beast darted through the streets in a haphazard fashion, but no matter where we went, I didn't see Zelda or Percy. Toward the center of town, I noticed the destruction got significantly worse. The flames and smoke choked me, but even through the haze, I could see people on the ground. Some already dead. Some in the midst of the violent tremors that happened as lycanthropy set in. Those poor people. Our odds of winning this battle would shrink drastically if the enemy could simply multiply by using our ranks. But beyond the logistical problem, I prayed Zelda and Percy wouldn't suffer a similar fate. As we continued on, my wolver seemed to grow more sluggish. Perhaps the silver bothered him, or perhaps the fire, or perhaps he'd just tuckered himself out. Whatever the reason, he collapsed close to a florist's shop. I didn't bother to move. I lay on top of him and tried to suck in a few breaths of clean air. "Zelda?" I hacked loudly. "Percy?" "Hattie!" I heard the weak call of my sister. "Zelda? Where are you?" I swiveled my head back and forth. This place seemed empty of our enemies, and I tried to sketch up a battle scene in my head. If the destruction was worse here, then it could be the place the skirmish had started. If I wanted to find Eris, I would bet money she'd be hiding out around here, keeping herself safe while her disposable army fought for her. "Coming!" My sister slowly crawled out of the smoke. Her arms were covered in blood, and fear almost strangled me. "Z, no, did you? I'm fine." Zelda turned her head and wheezed. "It's nothing. Just got into a brawl with one of those baddies. But I'm so glad you're okay." I left my steed and headed right to her arms. She hugged me tight and kissed my temple. "Yeah, I'm glad you're okay too." My eyelids grew heavy. "I lost my wand, though." Zelda groaned. "How did you even make it this far, then?" "Silver." I pulled the third letter opener out of the band of my skirt and pressed it against her leg until she grasped it. "Keep it. May help you." "Oh, Hattie, you're brilliant." Zelda squeezed me some more. "But you're also in danger without a wand. I met up with a few other witches and wizards. We've cleared this section out, but we still need to take care of the wounded and the turning. If I leave you inside one of the buildings here, will you promise to stay there until I can come back for you? The battle's almost done." "Yeah, I suppose. Right now, all I wanted was some fresh air and sleep. Is any place safe, though?" "Relatively. At least, the building isn't on fire, and the wolvers and werewolves have mostly dispersed from this area." Zelda hoisted me up and pulled me through the village circle. The fountain shaped like an oak tree, once a great beauty, had toppled. Now it was nothing more than shattered stone in a sorry puddle of water. I thought briefly of the statue of some old historical dude that greeted everyone on the other side of town. Did he still stand? It'd almost be a pity if he did. That thing was so ugly, the wolvers would be doing everyone a favor if they destroyed him. Zelda led me inside a bakery that was more or less intact, just as she'd promised. She thrust me behind the counter, right next to a shattered window. I carefully crouched down amongst all the shards and tried not to get glass in my bottom. "Stay here," Zelda said. "I mean it." I coughed and nodded. At least in here, I could breathe a bit easier. "Okay, but my wand, and Percy, we separated to look for you."
Well, of all the idiotic things, Zelda clucked her tongue. We really need to work on our disaster preparedness plan. I think the fatal flaw is that none of us seem to be able to stay together. You ran off too. Zelda kissed my head and smoothed down my dark brown locks. I know. I'm just as guilty. I guess it's hard to think logically in a disaster, isn't it? I guess. I sniffed and shooed her on. Go, hurry. Knowing Percy, he's probably trying to lecture some werewolf about their life choices. Best go save that poor beast from him. Zelda snorted and gave me one final pat before she left the bakery. And though I truly intended to follow her instructions, really, honestly, my plans for obedience only lasted a few minutes, through no fault of my own. Well, how delightful. It seems my army is creating even more wolvers. How I like seeing that. Someone said from outside my window. I'd say my little test was a complete success. So much fun. So much chaos. The voice had a lilting Phallic accent. I peeked my head out to see the back of a woman with long violet hair. In her hand, she held a golden apple. I crept forward, still crouched, and headed for the door. If that really was Eris, then I could find the golden apple and prove to Headmistress Demetria that I'd never stolen it to begin with. I'd save what bits of my reputation could still be salvaged, prove that I wasn't some petty golden apple thief, and return the hero of Morgana Hall. They'd be so happy, they'd reinstate me to school. Wait, was that a punishment or a reward? Well, at least being a hero would be worth it. Maybe I'd be able to squeak by in my classes with less than stellar performances if I reminded everyone of that fact constantly. Yes, I could see it now. Hattie Underwood, hero of Morgana Hall, savior of Harbor Oaks. I hear you creeping up on me. I gulped as the woman whirled around. No doubt about it. She fit Percy's description of a fae. Pointed ears, dark eyes that seemed to glow, an ethereal beauty. Her porcelain skin glimmered in the moonlight, and her hair cascaded like a violet waterfall to her waist. She wore black and violet finery that resembled a Gothic wedding dress. She also towered over me, even when I stood up, and I estimated her to be well over 6 feet tall. Eris, I breathed, more of a statement than a question. Excellent guess. Eris raised an eyebrow. Who are you? Hattie Underwood, I huffed, my breath visible in the night air. Some might call me your understudy. I'm known to cause a little chaos now and then myself. Eris smirked as she circled me. Her long train trailed out behind her. I could hear the gentle swish of the fabric with each step. Pity you're a spellcaster and can't be trusted. We may have been good friends in another life. We could still try. I don't know what kind of thing you like to do, paint nails while in your gym jams and such, or if you solely like causing strife, but I would be down for hanging out. I fingered the tassels on my scarf. Just give me the golden apple and we can be friends. No. Eris twirled a dark purple strand of hair around her finger as she balanced the golden apple in her other hand. You see, you live in Kingland, and Kingland hasn't atoned for its sins yet. Your people slaughtered the Fae, built iron fences to keep us prisoner, kept me in Tartarus for 500 years. You can't endure one tiny night of terror, but imagine the decades of war you put my people through, on our shores, not yours. She chuckled. That's why I made the golden apple, you know. To destroy all of Kingland, in the same way you destroyed my homeland. This apple carries the strife and animosity of almost 100 years of war. I don't know much about what happened back then, but I do know it was a long time ago. None of the people responsible for that are even alive. My hands itched to snatch the golden apple from her on her next go-around, but Eris stepped out of reach before I could. You're punishing innocent people, Eris, and I got expelled because of you. One act can't get you expelled. I'm sure this was building up for quite some time.
Eris waved her hands in the air like she could swat my words away. Especially if we really do share similarities. The other Fae could never quite handle me. My cheeks burned. I shouldn't let the words of someone whose sole mission was to create discord bother me, but I couldn't deny the truth. Who could handle me? I was a little too over the top, a little too much for my peers and teachers. Besides Perse and Zelda, I didn't really have many friends, and both of them more or less just tried to control my messes. If it weren't for the bonds and blood I shared with each of them respectively, they would have probably washed their hands of me already. I studied my burns as my brain sorted through a reply or a way to grab that stupid golden apple. Well, I mean, Eris snickered. Exactly what I thought. Let me guess. You don't fit into your school. Maybe you're a little rebel. Nobody really understands you. A trick. This was nothing more than a trick, but a dragon-blasted good one. I'd say you've spent most of your life being reprimanded, lectured, and told how you must reform to society's standards. To their standards, and be a decent, respectable spellcaster. Someone like my sister, I muttered, but then slapped my hands over my mouth. Broomsticks and baubles. I'd only given her more ammunition. She grinned like I'd given her a Christmas gift. I thought as much. You know, back before the war, there were a great many people like you, spellcasters who came to live with the Fae. Some of them stayed, got married, and had children. But the brutes of Kingland slaughtered even them. Half Fae or all Fae, they didn't care. Anything, just a little bit too out of the ordinary, was a threat to those ignorant fools. I bet a bunch of those out of the ordinary spellcasters were Underwoods. I come from a long line of oddballs. The name does sound familiar. I clenched the folds of my skirt. I should really learn to shut up. But I never could learn how to keep my mouth shut or my nose out of dangerous situations. Think about it, Hattie. Reject Spellcaster Society and join me. Help me break the runes off my apple to unleash its full power and start a new world order. Ah, so that was why she wanted me. I swallowed. I can't. I mean, it's not that I don't want to. It does sound like I'd fit in better with your kind, but I can't remove the runes until midnight tomorrow. So I'm sorry that you snatched it ahead of time, but really nothing can be done until then. Eris growled under her breath. For a moment, a sneer twisted her beautiful face, but she smoothed it back over. A partnership, then. If you wanted to, shall we say, give in to your darker nature, I could perhaps forgive my prejudices against your kind and accept you. Eris twirled the golden apple. Help me destroy all the spellcasters at the Halloween celebration tomorrow and cast off the last of these runes. Prove your loyalty to me. Eris tucked the golden apple behind her back and leaned forward until our foreheads almost touched. Her hair brushed against my face, and her dark eyes glowed. I will certainly never be ashamed of your mischief, or try to hem you in. Whatever you can think of, I'll help you achieve your goals. It would certainly be entertaining, if nothing else. I knew it had to be the influence of the golden apple sowing its malicious seeds in my mind. But I still couldn't help but replay everything. How Percy hadn't defended me to his mother. How he told me my behavior and school performance weren't stellar. How Zelda had immediately accused me of unleashing the monsters on Harbor Oak. I swallowed. Until tomorrow, then? Eris smiled as she drifted away. If you help me ruin the Halloween festivities and unlock the true power of my golden apple once more, I'll consider you an ally. If you stand in my way, well, I'd hate to see one of my little wolvers hurt you and your friends. With one final smirk over her shoulder, Eris rounded the corner and disappeared into the darkness. And I crumpled to the ground, feeling like she'd sucked all the energy out of me, frozen until Percy and Zelda found me once more. Halloween evening swept in like a woman wearing a long black cloak. It blotted out the sun early and gave rise to a moon that almost looked full. Stars peeked their heads out, and the autumn breeze moaned like a ghost while it rattled the trees together, the clanking of skeletons as they came to life. Everything seemed all too thrilled to participate in such a spooky and austere tradition as Halloween. Even me. Though I'd technically been expelled, I still donned my black robes over my traditional Morgana Hall uniform. At least this way, I'd blend in as I went about my mission. Zelda and Percy had attached themselves to my hip throughout the day, which made sneaking around a bit harder. But as head prefects, they'd had important duties to complete during the celebration, like greeting all the wizards, witches, and students from across Kingland. Therefore, I could creep about without their sniffing into my business. And such important business it was. First step, stealing a wand. I kept the hood of my robe up as I slipped from the dormitory wing to the main hall. I didn't have a specific target in mind, just someone's wand that I could filch rather easily. The little nippers seemed to be good targets. I found the kids congregated by the library, which had been overrun by cats for Halloween. "Hello," I greeted a little girl as I entered the room. I knelt by her. "All ready for Halloween?" The girl nodded and stroked a black cat. "Yes, this is my favoriteest time of year." I nodded seriously. "Mine, too. I just love making the enchanted jack-o'-lanterns and going to the haunted forest on field trips." The girl bobbed her head. "Yes, and the candied apples and pumpkin pie and—" She continued to prattle on about sweets, but I scanned the crowd and murmured every few seconds to show her I was still listening. But then I spotted him. A boy playing Stake the Vampire in the corner. Per tradition, he had on a blindfold, and not per tradition, his wand stuck out of his back pocket. "Well, it was a fun chat." I patted her head. "I see my little brother, though. See you at the banquet." I stole my way over to the group of boys gathered around. The blindfolded boy swung the stake, his hand out in front of him, and I may have beckoned a chair to scoot over a mere fraction of an inch into his path with a quick wandless spell. My hands smarted just from that, though, and my fingers tensed up. I flexed them as the boy tripped over the new hazard. "Ah!" He flailed his arms, and before his friends could catch him, I swooped in. "Oh, careful there! You almost hurt yourself!" I steadied him with one hand and gently plucked the wand from his back pocket, sliding it into my cloak's inner one. "Don't want to accidentally stake yourself there." He yanked off the blindfold and blinked a few times. I released him to his friends, none of whom seemed to have noticed my little chair nudge. I grinned and darted from the library. Step 1, complete. Step 2, cause enough chaos that Eris would take me into her trust. Obviously, there were many factors that were included in this part, and each mini plan could also be considered their own separate step. But since I'd only mainly planned the big picture points, any mischief I caused would fall under step 2, and I knew just where to start. I slinked into the dining room, where a few important spellcasters had already gathered. They chatted while they sipped on bubbly drinks, and in the corner, I saw Percy functioning as his mother's shadow. Zelda's bright blonde head stood apart in the sea of black. She seemed to be chatting with a handsome dark-skinned fellow. I narrowed my eyes at the duo. Surely my sister wouldn't be flirting, would she? She tossed her hair over her shoulder. What did you know? She was flirting. I'd have to put a stop to that. Breaking up two potential lovers before they started courting probably counted as discord and chaos in Eris's book. But not until I'd done what I'd come in here to do. I leaned in front of one of the pumpkins that Percy and I had lugged in and jabbed it with my stolen wand. "The midnight curse is here to stay. All the pumpkins come out to play. Make slippers of glass and mice into men, and we shall be kin with the Fae again." A burst of purple magic swirled around the first pumpkin. It rolled back and forth for a moment, until a few more pumpkins began to gravitate toward it. Slowly, 11 pumpkins crafted themselves together to form a golem with a jack-o'-lantern head.
Hungry!
The newly born pumpkin bellowed.
Food!
I backed away as it swatted at the first table.
Need food!
A few scattered screams pierced the crowd. More and more pumpkins pieced themselves together, but with a room full of wizards, I knew this distraction could only last for a little while, unless something else bad happened. Like princes of old, but make them green, these toads will cause an awful scene. A toad plopped out of my wand. Ribbit! It croaked at me before it hopped away, right before a second one splatted onto the floor. I grinned and whispered the spell furiously. The toads multiplied and raced out of my wand to flood the dining room. They jumped onto tables, onto the chandeliers. How they managed that, I couldn't say. And even onto one woman's particularly pompous pompadour. Oh, but I couldn't stop yet, and my little toads had inspired me. Double, double, toil and trouble, on every skin boils will bubble. I aimed this one in particular at Zelda, though after my initial target, I swept my wand around the room surreptitiously. Next, I sent a few blasts toward the chandeliers. Their chains shattered, but before they could drop to the ground, a few quick-thinking spellcasters used levitation spells. That may have stopped some injuries, but it didn't stop the fire as candles toppled and robes burst into flames. Louder! I whisper-casted and held my wand up to my mouth. I knew it! The rumors are true! Headmistress Demetria did lose the golden apple! This is all Eris's fault! I ended the spell before someone could question where that thought had come from, but it did its job. Hundreds of angry spellcasters from all around Kingland, each of them covered in boils, slipped and slid over toad slime as they stormed to Headmistress Demetria. The bickering reached a fever pitch, and I darted toward the door. Step 2 was progressing excellently. I collided with another robed figure. Hattie Underwood, Percy Holmes hissed. What did you do? Percy, get out of my way, right now. I tried to barge past him, but he grabbed me and jerked me back. Despite such a petite, scholarly frame, he somehow possessed enough strength to do so. Then tell me what you did. I tried again to wrench away from him. It took a few times, but I finally managed to shove him off. I didn't do anything. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a few more things to not do. Hattie. Percy latched onto my arm. Just tell me what you're doing. Suspicious that I did something? I clawed at his fingers until he released me. Well, someone did use the Cinderella curse, and very few people know that the golden apple is missing. Both counts seem to point toward... Emotion flickered through Percy's eyes. Why don't you just say that you think the worst of me? At least that way you can stop tiptoeing around the issue. I stepped away as the crowd surged through the dining rooms. The good news? Percy and I got swept up in the crowd, and he couldn't stop me. The bad news? I needed all of these panicked spellcasters in one place, and if they ran outside Morgana Hall, my plan would collapse. With the Cinderella curse fresh on my mind and Eris's golden apple at stake, it only seemed fitting to use another Fey-written spell in my arsenal. The Fey Gudrun cursed the air. Roses and thorns must keep her here. After a thrust of my wand, thick vines burst through the stone flooring and blocked the doors and windows. Thorny offshoots crashed through the glass, and I had no doubt that soon they'd wind themselves all the way up to the towers. Suffice to say, Fey rarely did anything halfway. Poisonous roses blossomed from the dark green vegetation, while obsidian-colored thorns dripped venom. The poison sizzled as it dropped onto the ground, and the guests screamed and backed away. Eris must be upon us! Someone shrieked. We have to get out of here before she kills us all! I did so love the sound of panic. Now, for the final nails in the coffin. I ran up the grand staircase and matched the beat of my feet with the rhythm of my next incantation. There's nothing that children love more than their sweets. Now everything in this room shall be a treat. I held up the edge of my robes as every new step brought forth my penultimate scheme. With every footfall, the floor splashed as if it were made of water, but it quickly turned to a dark, sickly scarlet that gushed down the stairs. Hardly any time had passed before the crowd's terror escalated to shrieks of horror. Blood! She's started a flood of blood! Everyone is acting so dramatic, but it leaves more for me. I paused long enough to dip my finger into the dark liquid for a nibble. Mmm, cherry-flavored syrup, my favorite. I clucked my tongue and took off running again, leaving a sticky, syrupy mess in my wake. The witch that Hansel and Gretel faced was always my favorite historical figure. That woman had a great candy curse. Hattie, stop this! I reached the door to one of the turrets, but a blast of magic hit me in the back. My forehead smacked against the door, and I whirled around to see Percy smeared with syrup. It covered his hands and feet, and I could see dark stains on his robes. But it looked like he'd escaped the worst of the boils. He only had 1 or 2 on his neck. I saw it. Don't deny it. You're causing this, and I know what you're going to do. Perce, just back away. My hand found the doorknob, and I slowly turned it. I don't want you to get hurt any more than you have to. Then stop this. Why are you doing it? What do you have to gain? Percy stepped toward me, and I held up my borrowed wand. You don't understand at all, because you don't understand me. My palm started to ache, but it was a much different pain than the burns that still lingered on my skin. No, this was a deep, slicing pain that radiated from the deep cut in my hand. I winced, and Percy did the same. He rubbed at his own scar, the mark of our bond, of the fact we shared a soul, though not, in fact, a brain. But apparently, right now, we shared our emotional pain as well. Perce, please, just turn around. Don't try and stop me. Don't try and be near me. I've got to do this. You don't have to do anything. You can stay and help fix all these curses. Hattie, you are so powerful. If you would just apply yourself and use your powers for good. I didn't have to fake the animosity as my voice turned colder. Shut up, Percy. Just shut up. I threw the door open. Bruno! Hurry, boy! The entire room shook as my midnight black beast of the underworld thundered down the stairs. He was composed of shadows and portals, and his form resembled a toddler's scribbles that moved and fluctuated. He also looked like a bear, or perhaps a lion, with glowing red eyes. I could see why people were scared of him, even though he really was a big sweetie. But he had snacked on a person once, and that kind of reputation tends to follow someone around. Percy, perhaps a little wary from his last encounter with Bruno, backed up against the railing so that Bruno could race past. I urged my monster down the stairwell toward the party below. He splattered red syrup behind him with every step. Down below, pandemonium ensued. Things shattered. People shrieked. And someone chuckled behind me. I whirled around and had to grab the banister before I toppled down the steps backward. Eris! My face heated. I have to say, your ideas are entertaining. But they lack a certain... how should I put this? Lethality. Eris patted me on the head like I was one of the cats in the library. You've yet to work up the guts to kill anyone. Percy took a step forward, but my eyes met his, and I willed him to stay away. Whether or not he heard my pleas or just grew scared from Eris, I didn't know, but he at least stopped his advance. You never mentioned that when you spoke to me yesterday. I kept my voice measured, but loud enough for Percy to hear. You just said I had to cause a little chaos, and you'd let me join your side. Didn't I do that? Eris peered over the railing to the party below. She snickered. Well, dear, you certainly caused some havoc. But this could still all be for show. No! Heat boiled inside of me until it felt like I might actually spontaneously combust. This isn't fair. You said that if I did this for you, if I helped you tonight, you'd believe me and take me on as your assistant. My palm burned. I hissed and dug my fingernails into it. Oh, Perce. I didn't dare to glance back up at him. I didn't know if I could handle it if I saw betrayal written across his face. I said I needed your help to destroy the spellcasters. I didn't mean to cause them a fright, as entertaining as that is. Eris unsheathed a dagger from the dainty leather holster that sat on her hip. But nothing. My mission is nothing short of war and annihilation, Hattie. If you think I'll be won over by these historical spells, well. Eris leaned forward until her violet hair spilled over her shoulder in silky waves that reached the floor. And you know what will happen to your little friends if you stand in my way. Outside the window, I heard a chorus of wolver and werewolf howls. I clenched my fists. I could get out of this. I could. I just needed one moment to think through my change of plans. How could you, Hattie? Percy whispered. How could you help Eris? Ah, yes. How could you, Hattie? Eris repeated in a mocking tone. How could I embrace what everyone thinks I am, you mean? I snorted. Super easy, actually. You know, I like you. Eris smirked. It really wouldn't surprise me if you're one of those rare breeds with a bit of fey blood in you, somehow persevering despite the persecution. You do strike me as having a bit more imagination than the lot of spellcasters down there. Maybe that's something I'll have to look into. Hattie. Percy took a step forward, the big ninny, or perhaps he was just oblivious to the fact that Eris held a knife. Please. Made of bone, still as stone, I barked. Percy fell to the ground, paralyzed. Well, attack your little friend, I must say, that's a very convincing act. But he's still not dead. I told you why I'm here. Eris slipped her finger through the circular, ring-sized hole at the bottom of her knife's hilt and spun the blade in an arc. I just hoped her weapon didn't fly off her finger and impale Percy. You also know what my friends mean to me. You can't kill him. I refuse. I lowered my wand. Promise not to hurt him. He won't trouble anyone when he's like this. I'll give you all the other spellcasters, but you can't hurt him or my sister. And you want me on your side. Making bargains, are we? Eris chuckled. I find that at least more believable than the people who suddenly toss off their loved ones in desperate attempts to make the villain believe they've switched sides. Those tricks are so see-through. I swallowed. I'm not a villain, and I'm not trying to trick you. Like you said, we're kindred spirits, and I'll help you so long as Percy and Zelda don't get hurt. I reached out and touched the banister. My knees trembled, and I was grateful my long robes concealed them. Come on, I think it's time for us to make our grand entrance, don't you think? Side by side, Eris and I glided down the staircase into the hubbub below. The fray was much worse than I could have imagined. Bruno stampeded through various rooms, bellowing as spellcasters tossed impotent magic at him. It bounced off his thick hide, but I still winced. My poor baby. I'd definitely have to make this up to him. But at least he had a good snack. He gobbled down a couple of the toads that still hopped around. I tried not to giggle as I thought of the underworld, complete with a total toad takeover. Another group of wizards and witches had taken to destroying my cursed thorn bush. A few of them lay on the floor, mouths open, caught in a dreamless sleep after they'd gotten too close to the thorns. And some of them seemed to have lost their wits completely. These people huddled in the corners, where they rocked back and forth and murmured to themselves about curses and monsters. The cherry-colored, treacle-like substance that coated the ground squelched beneath my shoes as Eris and I finished our grand entrance. What a fun Halloween this is, Eris remarked. I whispered the voice amplification spell and lifted my wand to her so everyone could hear her next threat. With one hand, she held up her golden apple. I could see the last of the runes flickering on its skin, which started to glow brighter. How does it feel to have the tides of war turned against you? To feel trapped, helpless, like your kind once held mine captive behind fences of iron? Eris! Headmistress Demetria, drenched in syrup and covered in boils and pumpkin innards, strode forward. Her eyes flickered to me for a moment, and widened behind her pince-nez glasses. And Hattie Underwood? A wizard crept up on Eris from the side. I whipped out my wand to intercept his spell. Made of bone, still as stone. He collapsed into the crimson mess below. I swept my wand around. Very unwise, that fellow. A few more spellcasters leveled their wands, this time at me. Zelda whirled around. Wait! Don't cast anything! That's my sister! Let me talk to her! She raised her hands in a protective gesture and crept toward me. Hattie, are you being held against your will? What on earth is wrong with you? There are a great many things wrong with the second-born Ms. Underwood, Headmistress Demetria muttered. Far too many to be listed here. That's right. Just go ahead and mock me, I snorted. Made of bone, still as stone. Headmistress Demetria fell next. Zelda blinked. I could see her prefect brain struggling to comprehend, so I left Eris's side and met Zelda where she stood, bowless and boily. Very few people seemed to have time to spare on our little family reunion. Bruno still rampaged, the Pumpkins still bellowed for food, and the people caught in nervous breakdowns hadn't composed themselves yet. Only one man tried to reanimate Headmistress Demetria, and I cast the petrification spell on him, too. No one else dared press their luck after that. Hardly anyone cared at all as Zelda and I leaned our heads together. I don't understand, Zelda whispered. That's a simple petrification spell. It's so easy to undo, although they'll have an awful headache. If you wanted to kill someone, then maybe I don't want to kill anyone. I gritted my teeth and refused to glance behind me. Laws, I just wanted this all to be over with. Or maybe I'm just so stupid I don't know any death hexes. I never pay attention, isn't that right? I jammed the end of my wand into her stomach. Her eyes widened, and though I knew my sister probably could have fought me off, both magically and physically, she didn't. She searched my face and muttered something that sounded like, do what you have to do. Or maybe, I still love you. Either way, I swallowed my guilt and cast the spell. Made of bone, still as stone. I nudged her petrified body out of the way as I headed toward the giant rosebush. Eris joined me. Time to let in the wolves, my dear. If you have any of these people you're partial to, you might want to hide them. Just Percy and my sister, I began, but my voice ended in a shriek as Eris whirled on a witch, knife extended. No! I didn't think. I dove in front of the blade, and Eris stabbed me in the shoulder. I'd never been in so much pain. I screamed and collapsed to the ground. Eris swore and jerked the knife out, which somehow hurt more than when it'd gone in. I rested my hand on the large vine as chaos ensued. Spells, swears, curses, hexes. Everything raged as Eris unleashed an attack on anyone that dared to defy her. Bruno stormed over. Perhaps he sensed my pain from some deep underworld connection we shared, and slammed into Eris. With my left hand, the arm that hadn't been stabbed, I grabbed a thorn with trembling fingers. Its toxin scalded my already burned hand, but so long as I didn't touch its pinprick point, I shouldn't fall under its curse. Eris might have sprung my trap too early, but that didn't mean that it couldn't all work out in the end. I crawled over to her. Bruno, stop it! She's on our side! Eris's eyes widened. Bruno had her pinned beneath one giant paw, his muzzle close to her nose. We don't send friends to the underworld anymore, I chastised him. My voice shook, and my vision grew hazy. We learned our lesson last time, remember? The world swayed, and despite the fact I was already on my knees, I knew I was about to pass out. I tipped forward and caught myself on Eris's pale leg with my left hand, the hand that held the thorn. She shrieked. Her eyes rolled back into her head, and her breathing softened. A fey curse had brought her down at last, and my thoughts swirled, becoming less and less coherent. The irony. Being impaled by her own sword. A tale as old as time. Something like that. I crashed into the syrup as the world faded to black. Back up! Back up! Everyone, get away from her! She's coming too! I groaned at my sister's voice. Z, I don't want to wake up yet. Hattie Underwood! Zelda gave my shoulders a good shake. I winced and instinctively screamed, only to realize that it didn't hurt. Weary, I peeked one eye open and shrugged my right shoulder. What? I mended you. Zelda eyed me crossly. Her boils had also shrunk considerably. After someone depetrified me. It took a little bit to get everything under control, but I think Morgana Hall is almost back to normal. Thank goodness. I let my head hit the floor, the syrupless, toadless floor. So glad someone drained the sticky mess, too. Very clever, Hattie Underwood. You're lucky we figured it out when someone accidentally slipped and got some in their mouth. Zelda smacked my head. Do you know how many gallons of shampoo and conditioner we're all going to need to get the syrup out of our hair? Not to mention how long it'll take to get the stains out of our clothes. I hope you have a good explanation. My good explanation should still be unconscious, unless somebody woke her up. I didn't bother to try and locate Eris's sleeping form, or more aptly, hopefully, sleeping form. Eris is still unconscious, yes. Zelda rested a cool hand against my flushed cheek. And your hands looked awful, Hattie. Did you do all of this wandless? You could have ruined your hands. No, this is from when I cast a wandless fire spell yesterday. I borrowed somebody's wand for this rigmarole. That reminds me, I found yours. Zelda flushed. I hoped if I kept it until the end of the festivities, it would keep you out of trouble. I should have known better. She reached into one of the pockets of her robe and pulled out my wand. There were a few bite marks on it. Other than that, it still looked as beautifully awful as I remembered it. I'd done the carvings myself, and people often informed me that it made my sacred wizarding tool look like a kindergartner's art project. But it was mine, and I could have cried to lay eyes upon it. Thanks, Z. My voice cracked as my fingers circled around its bumpy form. I need to return the one I commandeered, my sister finished dryly. Another shrill voice interrupted the sweet, sisterly moment. Let me see that girl! Headmistress Demetria stormed into sight. She looked a bit healthier than when I last saw her. Hattie Underwood, there are no words for the damage and destruction you caused tonight. Throwing your lot in with Eris? I never expected it, but really I should have. As punishment for assisting Eris and attacking spellcasters on Halloween, I have no choice but to make your expulsion from Morgana Hall permanent. Not to mention, I'll have to place charges against you. You will be brought up to the High Parliament and judged appropriately for your crimes there. I croaked and glanced at Zelda. Her eyes met mine, and her face crumpled. I shifted my attention to Headmistress Demetria, or rather, the person behind her. My supposed best friend, the head prefect, the one, the only, Percy Holmes. My hand throbbed still, but it felt like my heart had grown numb to the pain. Neither of them said anything as Headmistress Demetria announced my sentence. Fine. If I couldn't trust them, then... Wait, Headmistress! I blinked as Zelda stood and straightened her back. My sister? The head prefect going against the headmistress of our school? Maybe I'd died and ended up in some alternate universe. I don't think Hattie intended to do any of this. Well, she probably intended to cause mischief, but I don't think she had ill intentions. Did you, Hattie? She looked down at me, and I didn't bother to hide my smile. No. I found Eris in Harbor Oak yesterday during the attack. I didn't have the means to take the golden apple then or stop her, so I tried to set a trap for her today. We came to an agreement that I would defect to her side and help her stop the spellcasters. I winced as I tried to sit up. Since everyone here thinks so lowly of me anyway, I knew it wouldn't be hard to fool anyone. You already accused me of stealing the golden apple when it was Eris all along. Well, Headmistress Demetria stammered. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I just knew that Eris was smart, and I had to try and trap her. I thought with all of us here, we could at least overwhelm her and steal the golden apple. My back cracked as I shifted, and I rolled my neck until it did the same. But she arrived too early, and I didn't have time to do my original plan. Then I saw my thorns, and I thought that if I could just get across the room to them, I could put her into an eternal sleep. A little off-the-cuff thinking, to be sure, and I'm sorry I had to petrify a few of you to get there. You counted on us to think badly of you as part of your plan? Percy's voice sounded dull, but not hurt anymore. He blinked, and did I dare to think that there might actually be tears on his long eyelashes? I nodded. Eris had to believe me, which meant everyone else had to believe me. And we all did. You were trying to help, and we believed you were wicked. Percy sniffed. Because you already believe I'm wicked, yeah. I struggled to my feet. Zelda gasped and studied me, and I leaned my heavy head against her shoulder. She wrapped her arms around me and pressed a kiss to my filthy matted hair. Like I said earlier, that part was super easy. Well, Headmistress Demetria surveyed the destruction. That is to say, you caused an awful lot of damage, Hattie, and we have several good witches and wizards still under the Sleeping Beauty curse. Yes, well, it only takes true love's kiss to wake them. They'll be okay, I said. Zelda snorted. Hattie, that's an old witch's tale. To break a Sleeping Beauty curse, you have to make a very elaborate potion, or wait for 100 years. Oh, I cleared my throat. Well, maybe we best get on that potion then. Yes, maybe. Zelda chuckled and held me even tighter. You were very brave, Hattie. I'm so sorry we didn't see it. It's okay. I burrowed my head into her shoulder. I'm just glad Eris is gone now. I vote we leave her asleep for 100 years in Tartarus, and maybe get some runes on that golden apple before it causes the end of the world at midnight. Yes, yes, we've already started that. Headmistress Demetria coughed once and stepped forward. She tapped my head in an awkward manner. Good, good job, Hattie. Your plan was a tad bit destructive, but in the end, I suppose your heart was in the right place, and, Mum. Percy wrapped his arms around both Zelda and me for a group hug. Just say it. You saved the world, Hattie, and this time, you didn't even start the destruction. I laughed. A weak and weary sound. I did, didn't I? Feels kind of good, actually. Hey. Percy approached me in the tower a little before midnight. The coffin holding King Arthur's body sat behind us on a dais. Hey yourself. I sat on a window seat and peered out at the autumn night below. I was thinking about what you said earlier. Percy perched next to me. The wind blew in through the open window and buffeted my hair around. I grabbed the brown strands and held them in one hand as I stared up at the stars. Close by, an owl hooted. You really had all of us going. Yeah. Seems all too likely I'd join someone like Eris, huh? I didn't bother to keep the sarcasm out of my tone. Well, Percy shifted uncomfortably. I guess having a bond doesn't mean that we know each other perfectly, does it? I sniffed. The cold chilled my eyes, and I scrunched up my face so Percy wouldn't think I was crying. Apparently not. I leaned my chin against the windowsill and watched a lazy cloud drift in front of the moon and cast shadows on my beloved castle. I suppose I should say sorry. Percy rested one hand on my shoulder and gave it a squeeze. Perhaps. Are you going to be mad at me forever? Perhaps. I drew out the moment before I let Percy off the hook. No, not forever. Just until you grovel a little bit. Percy snorted. I'm sorry, Hattie. I should have stuck with you through it. I just thought, well, it seemed to me like you'd found someplace you fit in, and I don't fit in anywhere. Not with you and Zelda, not with Eris, not with anybody. I'm not exactly good enough for Morgana Hall, but not wicked enough for Eris. I'm the in-between that nobody wants to acknowledge. I turned, and our gazes locked. So if I don't go where I fit in, I must go where I love. And I love Morgana Hall and Zelda, and sometimes you. I nudged his shoulder with my elbow. But don't get a big head about it. Sometimes I even love your mother because it's kind of cute how she tries to reel me in when I get too wild. And she fails every time. But it's still cute that she keeps trying. And it's cute when she slips up and realizes she might actually begrudgingly like me. We descended into silence. Hey, Percy poked me after a moment. I really am sorry. You're right. I should have known you better than to suspect you'd throw your lot in with Eris. But you made it very convincing.
I had to. Eris wasn't going to believe me if you didn't believe me. But still, it would have been nice if I couldn't fool you. I sucked in a breath and released my hair so the wind could blow it again. To know that you had my back, no matter what.
I do.
Percy swallowed.
I know that it doesn't seem like that, but I wouldn't have let you defect to Eris's side without a very stern lecture.
I rolled my eyes. How effective.
They typically are.
Percy grinned and held up his pinky finger for me.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. From now on, I will consider you innocent until proven otherwise. Best friend, pinky swear?
I curled my tiny finger around his. All right. This is a very solemn vow, though, you know. Unbreakable, some might say.
Even more unbreakable than sharing a soul with someone?
Even more so. Much more sacred. Nobody can break a pinky swear. I gave his finger a squeeze and dropped my hand. Do you really mean it, though? You'll believe me, innocent until proven guilty?
Percy put his hand over his heart. By the sacred pinky swear, I do.
Great. I threw my arms around his neck and brought him in for a long hug. Because I have quite a few schemes I have been dying to get away with.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Of Pumpkins and Golden Apples by Hannah Carter, narrated by Karyne Norton. If you want to read more by Hannah, go to authorhannahcarter.com to find more of her books. Her most recent book, The Tempest of Reckoning, released on September 20th, concluding her Atlantis trilogy. So I highly recommend snagging and binging the whole series. I'll have a direct link to it in the show notes. If you're enjoying listening to Finding Fantasy Reads, please consider leaving a review. Reviews help me know how to improve the show, whether it's to keep the things you like or get rid of the things you don't, and it helps new listeners find the podcast. A good review can often be the tipping point to get someone to listen or subscribe, which means I can keep making more new episodes for you. If you're not sure how to leave a review, check out today's show notes for some easy instructions. Thank you all for listening, and happy reading.